the other side to some of these questions to Senator Pat Leahy. He is the Democratic chairman, of course, of the Senate Judiciary Committee. Well, you heard what the congressman said, Senator Leahy. Tell me why you think he's wrong.
Well, I think that Eric Holder, our Attorney General, is right. I think the President is right in holding the trials of these murderers in New York City. What we're saying to the world is the United States acts out of strength, not out of fear. I know when I go around Vermont, people say, let's try criminals. Let's try criminals like KSM. Let's get them convicted. We're very much a law enforcement type of state here. I was a former prosecutor. I'd like to just see them prosecuted. Well, in the same way we prosecuted Timothy McVeigh. We're not afraid to do that. We're the most powerful nation on earth. We have a judicial system that's the envy of the world. Let's show the world that we can use our power, we can use our judicial system, just as we did with Timothy McVeigh, and send the people and convict the people.
But Timothy McVeigh was an American. He was not what some people would call an enemy combatant. Won't this be a circus of sorts, though? That's what the congressman is saying. He says it's going to just turn into a propaganda show.
I have a lot of faith in our judges. They know how to run a trial. They know how to keep decorum in their court. If Khalid Sheikh Mohammed wants to stand up and say, as he did in Guantanamo, I committed all these murders, I did all these things, fine. If I was a prosecutor, I'd just sit there and let that jury hear it, because he's going to be convicted. That's the important thing. And we show the world that our judicial system works. I think that's why people like Ray Kelly, who's the commissioner of police, one of the finest commissioners of police anybody's ever had there in New York City, said, we're prepared, we can handle this.
But I guess the point that some people are raising is that someone who is an enemy combatant does not deserve the benefits that one gets in a trial, in an American courtroom.
If somebody murders Americans and they murder Americans in America, they ought to be prosecuted in America and ought hopefully convicted in America. And if somebody comes into our country and murders somebody walking down the street, we're going to prosecute them here. It doesn't make any difference whether they're Americans or not Americans. They committed the crime in America, and that's what he did. I think that the administration is doing the right thing. They're using all the things we have available. With Major San, we're using a court-martial at Fort Hood, and that's the appropriate venue for that. With these 9/11 murderers, we're using the criminal courts in New York for them. With the people who bombed the USS Cole, we'll use the newly reconstituted military tribunals. I think it's an example, and we're showing the rest of the world we have systems that work. We're not afraid of these people. We're ready to stand up to them. I don't think we should run and hide and cower. Let's use our system, and let's convict them.
What if he should be acquitted?
I don't think he's going to be acquitted. I've discussed the evidence that's available. Again, I've not prosecuted this kind of case, but I prosecuted a lot of murder cases. I think most prosecutors know what's going to happen. And you've got Eric Holder, who is one of the most experienced prosecutors this country's ever had as Attorney General. Mm-hmm. He's got one of the greatest teams of prosecutors around him. I've gone over the case with him. I'd rather be the prosecutor than the defense counsel in this case.
You know, anybody who's watched Law and Order or any of the other crime shows on television knows that when the first thing that happens when a law enforcement officer arrests someone, they advise them of their rights, that they have a right to an attorney and so on. Now, there was no attorney here. This man was waterboarded 183 times. Do you think that we can find untainted evidence, enough of it, to convince him, to convict him? Because if you say, well, he didn't have a lawyer from the beginning, would that say to people, to a judge, well, you can't use any of that evidence?
No, I think that we have plenty of evidence that was obtained outside of the whatever he said in the waterboarding. Keep in mind, they indicted him long before this waterboarding. They had evidence enough to bring indictments against him long before that. I don't with the review that I've had of the evidence available, I have no question that they have enough evidence to be untainted by the waterboarding, that will be admissible in court, and they will be convicted.
Let me just ask you, because you're the chairman of the Judiciary Committee, about this investigation that's going on down in Fort Hood. Obviously, somebody dropped the ball in all of this process. This man should not have been at Fort Hood. Do you think Congress ought to actively open an investigation into this, Senator Leahy?
Well, I agree with the congressman that there's a lot of the dots that were not connected. The fact of the matter is there will be congressional investigations. I think we have to do it carefully in a way that we don't interfere with the prosecution that is going to be of him, the court-martial prosecution. We don't want to step on things that will make it more difficult to prosecute him, because of course he should be prosecuted for these murders. But obviously in the Congress we have a reason for oversight. I've already talked to Director Mueller of the FBI about this, and the Attorney General. The Attorney General will be before the Senate Judiciary Committee on Wednesday. I fully expect that he'll be asked a number of questions about this. Ultimately, we should know where, if mistakes were made, where they were made, for the sole purpose of making sure those mistakes are not made again. The same way we did after 9/11. You know, the evidence was there and the information was there to stop the attack in 9/11. The dots were not connected. Had they been, we just want to make sure these mistakes are not made a second time.
All right. Well, we'll look forward to those hearings in the coming week. Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman, for joining us. We'll be back in 1 minute.